Now let's bring back in Jeff, as well as our next guest, a good friend of the income generation, as well as a great friend of Jeff and mine, Sam McElroy. He's a partner with Stride Financial, a retirement income store located in Chicago, Illinois. Sam, Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you. So, hey, let's get, we don't have a lot of time, so let's get right into it. What do you see as being some of the biggest impediments, some of the biggest difficulties or challenges that our viewers and listeners might have going into 2021 when it comes to retirement planning?
You know, going into 2021, I think some of the biggest challenges people are going to have to realize is that a lot of the rules around this are changing. And what I mean by that is that a lot of the old axioms that we used to hold to may no longer be true. You know, we're going to have to deal with changes around taxes. We're going to have to potentially deal with changes maybe around other entitlement programs like Social Security. I think we're going to see some rotations in the market, maybe somewhat of a pullback. And then now you're seeing more and more articles that are talking about how all the conventional wisdom about, beefing up your tax deferred accounts and 401k's may no longer be true just because of the differences between marginal rates when you're working versus when you're retired. So I think it's a lot of just restructuring and rethinking through what your purpose is and making sure that your strategies are aligned with it.
So it sounds like really the same type of advice you might give to somebody at the beginning of every year, kind of sort of stick to the basics, right, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You got to stay modern, but you also have to stay modern in your money. And Sam, there's lots of options going forward in 2021. There's lots of optimism. The vaccines, the markets, people getting back to work, kids going back to school. So tell us what you think the most optimistic parts of 2021 will be for you and your clients, and what would you like to see for you and your clients in 2021?
Great points, Jeff. I think that for all of us, and you can look at this from a societal standpoint, from a political standpoint, from a financial standpoint, but at the end of the day, I think being able to move out of so much of the fear created around COVID-19, things starting to reopen, us reverting back to whatever the new normal will look like, obviously has to be top of list. There's a lot of people that have been impacted and continue to be impacted by the narrative around COVID-19. So I think that's got to be number one. But as that starts to change and as things start to open up and as we start to get back to maybe some semblance of normalcy, I think that there's a lot of other things to be grateful for, to be thankful for, and to be optimistic about going into 2021 from a financial standpoint. It'll be interesting to see what happens in terms of interest rates, whether the 10-year Treasury starts to come back up, if the market continues on an upward trajectory. But all of those things are really going to be shaped based off of where we go directionally, just around the rest of the story around COVID-19.
Yeah, as soon as we get back from the break, Sam, I want to talk to you a little bit about, what kinds of goals and focuses that people should have in 2021, and maybe even find out what your own goals or New Year's resolutions are going into 2021 when it comes to business as a financial advisor in the Windy City. So stay with us, Sam, please. And you stay with us, too. We have much more coming up in a moment on the income generation. I'm Dave Scranton. I'm here with Jeff Small and Sam McElroy, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Income Generation. I'm David Scranton. I'm here with Jeff Small and Sam McElroy, partner with Stride Financial, a retirement income store located in Chicago, Illinois. So Sam, what do you think are the most important things that our viewers, our listeners really need to focus on going into 2021 when it comes to their money, especially when you're talking about people in or nearing retirement?
Yeah, so when you're dealing with people that are in near retirement, I think we talked about it a little bit earlier in the show as well about getting back to basics. And I think that we have to get back to where we're demanding income as a first priority on our investments. I think that when you look at years like we just had in 2019, where we saw a lot more volatility, it's a great opportunity to kind of, have people do a gut check and see if they really are at the risk level that they want to be at, and just make sure that the things that they're doing are as efficient as possible, that they're not taking any more risk than what's necessary to accomplish their goals. And what that means is that they also have to approach finances a little differently. We can't look at it, simply looking at things like alpha and beta and trying to compare ourselves to arbitrary benchmarks. We have to really get back to what the purpose is for which we're investing. What's the higher utilization of the money that we have, and from that, we can really start to think about how we can do the greatest good and where we really need to be from a goal setting standpoint as we move through 2021.
Yeah. Like you said, kind of sort of, sticking to basics, modernizing, as Jeff says, yes, but sticking to basics. Jeff?
Yeah, so I think modernizing is the key and staying in tone with, the rotational shifts in the market are going to be the theme of the day for 2021. I guess, Sam, the market's going to get back to more of a fundamental approach and understanding, what companies are growing their bottom line and their top line, which ones are, surpassing what's happening with these challenges we've had in the economy from the last several months. And so the market's going to be codependent more on fundamentals going forward. And so that we're seeing this rotational shift in value stocks. Value stocks are going to be the rage, I think, in 2021, probably more so than the NASDAQ. Tell me what you think.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that we are going to see a rotation back into value, which I think is a great opportunity for people that really know how to look for good opportunities with respect to value stocks. I think that one of the things that's happened over the last 2, 3, 4 decades is that a lot of individuals and a lot of advisors, unfortunately, have lost the art form of how to invest properly for income. And as a result, they're really just looking at what their rate of return is. They're looking at what their growth is. But as we all know, when you start moving into the distribution phase, it's not just about your rate of return. You have to understand things about your return on principal. You have to understand your economic output. And if you don't, a lot of people are going to end up with a, substandard retirement, really looking at the wrong numbers, being confused by what they're really telling them.
Sam, I've heard those words somewhere before. I don't know where I've heard those words, but I have heard them before. I think maybe, where did you hear those words?
Well, we talk about it all the time, and really, in talking with you, Jeff, and in talking with you, Dave, it's words and terminologies that any true income specialist kind of deals with. It's really what it all comes down to, and we often talk about how, really, I think the industry as a whole asks the wrong question when it comes to retirement planning in general. This whole idea of whether or not you're going to run out of money is really silly, because it's not just about whether or not you run out of money. There's a psychological element to it. It's about whether or not you maintain the freedom to actually enjoy and spend your money throughout the course of retirement. And the only way to kind of ascertain that has to do more with sustainability, consistency of income, as opposed to whether or not your account balance is still positive, before you die.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
Sam, I'm sorry, Dave. Sam, what is income? How do you define income? If you're going to explain that to a layperson, because most investors, retirees, pre-retirees, they don't understand the word income. How do you explain the word income?
Yeah, I think this is where sometimes we confuse ourselves. Anybody who works a job understands what income is. Income is cash that you get paid. If you look at things like stock options, you wouldn't consider that income, though it may be part of your, compensation package. And it's the same thing in retirement. So income from investments are things that you receive in the form of cash, dividends, interest, things like that, as opposed to just simply having an unrealized gain due to, a growth in terms of the market value of something you could sell if you wanted to.
Yeah, it's true. It's funny because, sometimes people say, I've got enough income. My broker sends me checks. I get $2,000 a month from my account. That's enough. But they don't really know whether it's coming from interest or dividends, what we call income, or whether it's coming just through a sale of shares, through systematic distributions. The former being a much more secure way than the latter. So Sam, 20 seconds left. We've got we had a crazy 2020 as a financial advisor in the field. You've had to morph and make changes to adapt. What's your wish for 2021 for yourself and your own practice moving forward?
I've really been reflecting on this, and I would say that my wish is that I really just want to become a better communicator. I think that there's so much information that we have and so much information that the general public is looking for, but our ability to better communicate the things that we need to do and the information that we have so that they understand how to make real world practical decisions, I think will help them make better decisions. And that's really my goal for
Yeah, in this world where you're not necessarily sitting face to face, knee to knee, elbow to elbow with people, communication is first and foremost. So Sam, thanks so much for being with us once again. And you stay with us too. We have more coming up here in just a moment on the Income Generation.